Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the RationalInvestor.com Daily Brief. Woohoo! Party! Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Woohoo! Where are we
Investor.com
here?
Daily
It
Brief.
looks like
Woohoo!
we got
Party!
YouTube working, so that's good. We got the Kavarkanator himself riding his motorcycle coming in. I should get your picture up ready. Maybe even have it in the corner here. Hoping to drive the bus this morning, and actually, thank heavens we have him here because yesterday we had the TRI SOF meeting, and I totally botched the video recording streaming, and it turns out I streamed it to the whole YouTube for free. And somebody on the site PM'd me halfway through the show. Brian, you do realize this is being broadcast on YouTube, right? I'm like, oh man. We've got, like I said, we got the mayor of Albuquerque, Kavarkanator himself here this morning. How you doing this morning, Kevin?
Doing well, thanks.
Good, good. I think we're heading in a good direction here. And, FYI, everybody, I guess it's old man-itis. I don't know. Every once in a while, I have just horrible sleeps. And, of course, I was drinking coffee all through yesterday evening, so that probably didn't help. So I'm really, really punchy here this morning. So my apologies. If I happen to nod off halfway through the broadcast, somebody yell at me to wake me up, okay? It is our second day back from the summer break. It is now Wednesday, the 4th of September. I'll show you right here. Let's see. So we record on YouTube. There we are, Wednesday the 4th. So you can feel we're sort of, slowly getting settled back into the rhythm of the market. I think you could make the argument that we had risk on versus risk off, battling back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It feels as though this is a risk on day. You can see yen and bonds are weaker. Gold's, and the metals, they're being stubbornly strong here. Crazy Bitcoin. I still don't know where the heck the Bitcoin falls in this risk on, risk off world. Bonds, yen, gold kind of sideways. Stocks feeling pretty positive. We'll see if they can hold on to their gains through the day. And oil jumped right back up. From what I understand, the hurricane in the Gulf is actually it's not in the Gulf. It's heading up the east coast of Florida. I saw interesting articles. The U.S. Navy is sending all their ships offshore, getting everybody the hell out of Virginia. So I get the impression that things like oil wells in the Gulf are the offshore drilling rigs, all that kind of stuff are not in danger at the moment. I think we're sort of back to do we have global growth? Or are we heading slowly into economic malaise? And I suppose from the news front, from what I understand, and actually I was watching a whole bunch of really interesting. I don't know why I always do this. I get a whole bunch of news articles all ready for the broadcast, and then I go and put them all away. It drives me nuts. Long and short of it here, the headlines, which I think sort of kicked off the sort of risk on conversation again, centered around the Chinese, and of course I can't find it when I want to find it. It always drives me nuts when that happens. Here it is. Good. So I did save it. So I think really you could make the argument that, and I've sort of made this argument all along, that I think the whole world is watching. The whole world is watching. I don't know whether you remember that. That was what they were saying back in 2008, 2009, the financial asset crisis and all that. And the Wall Street sit-ins. I don't know, do you guys remember those days? Anyway. I think the whole world is watching how this Hong Kong situation resolves itself. And they announced that they've absolutely killed the extradition bill, which is what I think really triggered all these protests to begin with. I also posted in the lounge yesterday a really interesting. It was an audio interview, so it wasn't really like it was video. But actually, I really liked it because what it showed was that this lady is a human being after all. And I think that's what we really need more in this world is we need more humanity. We just need people to be like, hey, I'm not such a jerk. I'm actually a real person. I was really touched when she said, ladies like to go to the beauty salon. They like to pamper themselves. And she's like, I can't even go to the beauty salon and get my hair done anymore. I actually thought that really, I don't know, it conveyed a message of humanity, which I actually really liked. Maybe it was a smokescreen, who knows. But bottom line here is, I think that audio interview that we talked about, where I talked about yesterday, I think it's clearly evident that China's got a long game here, like mainland Beijing. They're in no hurry. I mean, that handover from Hong Kong was back in the 90s, for Pete's sake. That's 20 years ago. If maybe they have to wait another 10 years before they push this through, I don't think Beijing really cares. But at the same time, too, I also found some really interesting video interviews. There's one gentleman, they call him like the most wanted man in Hong Kong or in China. And I posted a video of him in the lounge. Really interesting interview. He was talking Chinglish, which I found really amusing. And he's just trying to expose how brutally corrupt the communist government is, and how really it's just basically a big mafia. So in a weird sort of way, it almost feels like there's an ebb and flow here, and the ebb is now moving away from China coming down really hard on Hong Kong, and they're sort of getting some breathing space, and so as a result, who knows how long lasting this is, but as a result, I think the sort of pressure cooker that was building in around this situation is sort of backed off a little bit, and the whole market, like international markets, everything just jumped back up on that maybe things were just going to be calming down a little bit. And frankly speaking, and I should probably find that gentleman's interview. In fact, actually, I tweeted it out, so because I thought it was so powerful that I do understand that on TRI we definitely have a very diverse audience, and there are pro-China people, there are negative China people. I'm not here to tell you what to think. All I want to do is just give you information, and you make your own decisions. This is the interview that I was talking about. Exiled Chinese billionaire accuses China, blah, 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 blah. And, I'm not, like I said, I'm not here to tell you what's right or wrong. You just, you listen to this guy and just, draw your own conclusions. And he made actually a pretty bold statement about Jack Ma. I mean, any of you find it kind of interesting that all of a sudden, this guy that's a multi-billionaire started from absolutely nothing, could be like a center of like the capitalist movement. All of a sudden, he just hands over his entire interest in this massive internet conglomerate that he created out of nothing. That's worth billions of dollars. He just hands it over to some mysterious shareholders, and is now announced that he's going to retire. That to me sounds a little suspicious. And this guy, he makes a prediction that you're either going to hear that Mr. Ma has accidentally died, and there was another big Chinese capitalist dude, same sort of thing. He accidentally fell off a 2-foot wall in Provence, France, and died. And like everybody's like, that seems awfully suspicious. Anyway, this guy's made the prediction that Mr. Ma, his days are numbered. Which is too bad, because I mean, like, gee whiz, do we really live in that bad of a world? I don't know, but let's sort of just keep this in a running sort of thing in our back of our mind. If we hear, 6 months from now that, oh, gee whiz, very quietly, Mr. Ma has either been thrown in jail because he was corrupt and he was taking bribes all along, whatever, blah, 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 or he's passed away, don't be shocked. That's how, this gentleman in here in particular, he sort of lays out that, these Chinese, they play hardball. And, I suppose I better be careful. They might just come and murder me. It's tough to say, but who knows what happens in this crazy world. On sort of a dovetail to this, because obviously this was very, and maybe this guy has political motivations. Who knows? But a dovetail to this, I found a really interesting interview. Well, not interview. This guy's commentary on the Chinese banking industry and how bad the numbers are, and they're getting pretty bad. Like 300% GDP, the amount of debt they're carrying. I mean, just staggering amounts of debt. That at some point this is going to come to a head. And so kind of like, this guy's obviously very opinionated. This guy was just very matter of fact, very frank. I connected the two tweets, and I just think it's going to be a good reference point for us going forward. Politics aside, and I do understand there's some people on the site that are going to be like, oh, that guy's just totally politically motivated, right? You're getting brainwashed, Brian. I don't really care. All I just want to do is just hear the message. And then just a very matter of fact, this guy's actually Australian. Really cool, just quick piece on what is the situation with the debt. So I thought that was a really interesting sort of juxtaposition of tweets there yesterday. A couple of videos for you to watch. Let's see. Kevin says that there's big things going on in the crypto news market. What was that crazy headline that you had?
I wasn't saying there was big news, but I was just reading a headline about let me see here. Some guys got caught, illegally mining Bitcoin in China, I think. They had control of 9,000 computers and in a coffee shop, and they got raided.
How do you hide 9,000 computers though? That's gonna be one big ass coffee shop.
Well, no, they were like hacking into them. There were other people.
Oh, I see. And then tell them direct them. Oh, okay. I gotta blow my schnoz. Hold on a second, and I'm not gonna mute because I'm too lazy. I get all emotional talking about people actually being humans, and so it brings a tear to my eye. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's get on with market talk. As I said, my impression is that we're sort of back into a risk-on type of environment. What I found is through the first few days of September, historically, there's a lot of back and forth and chop and stuff. You could make the argument to a certain degree that Bitcoin actually works as a pretty good sort of stressor. And so it's interesting, of course, that Bitcoin did rally up into resistance levels. And then on, the idea of risk coming back on, maybe Bitcoin needs to take a bit of a pause here. I suppose we'll get to that in a bit. Maybe just take a quick boo at some stocks that look interesting. Did notice too, we and through the daily brief recap, we often start off with this, but U.S. dollars coming off a big chunk here today, and same sort of conversation that we've had recently. Because this was a new high yesterday, we have to wait for this day to actually finish, and then if we print below this low tomorrow, then that's a fractal, and we probably should be looking for lower ticks here going forward until we fractal the other direction. So, this is also, in the market's eyes, it's a vote of risk on versus risk off. Usually what ends up happening when people sort of flee into the US dollar, it's sort of like, just get me out of all risk assets. I want to buy T-bills and just turtle. So if anything, if we are heading back into that risk on environment, then we should see this fractal come in. and we start to break down here. Could you make the argument that this was a harmonic level? Gee whiz, it's awfully close to 127s. All the harmonic aficionados on the site, and actually, Kevin, you were saying you were setting up Scott Carney's software on Sierra Charts to start hunting harmonics.
Yeah, I just set up Sierra Charts last night, and I'm doing the free trial for Scott Carney's platform too. So it's pretty cool. I think there's a couple other people like Joshua might be doing it as well. So I've only played it for the last, I played with it for a couple hours this morning.
Yeah, there's China Tim. I knew there was no way I was going to get away with making that commentary of China without him coming out with the rebuttal. I knew it. And half of the time I wonder if China Tim is actually an agent of the government in China. and the last message I'm going to get from him is, oh, by the way, Brian, we do have a camera in your office right there. We're watching everything that you do. It wouldn't surprise me one bit. But anyway, if I understand correctly, Christine Lagarde came out and sort of placated European audiences a little bit too. So we do see euros catching a bit of a bid. And if I understand, and actually, Jamie, I don't know whether you're on the call here or not, or whether you feel like adding anything. I think you bailed, though. I don't see him on the call anymore. But from what I understand, the British situation has not finished. And Mr. Boris Johnson may actually face a no confidence vote here, which I think means that they have to go back to a general election. I'm not totally familiar. I'm just here watching you, Brian, taking notes. Tim just posted that in the lounge. I don't know. Obviously, markets never move in a straight line, ebb and flow, and all that kind of fun stuff. Where did I have that? Hold on a second here. Just while we're here, and I'm kind of messing around this morning, probably not the best video here for you today. Watching Europe, here we are. So I think both the British pound and the euro kind of ratcheted back up. Well, euro a little bit, British pound there. I think you can make the argument, move stop to trailing level hit. So, those people that are, kind of like wishy-washy on that British pound short, if we W out here, I could completely understand if they wanted to hop off. But basically a counter trend rally ensuing right now. And again, I'm not really, that versed in the British political situation. Josh, you're there in there you are, Josh Morris. You're there in London, aren't you?
Yes, I am in the UK still. I haven't left
can you
yet.
give us a report from the ground? What's your impression of what the heck's going on over there?
I was actually watching the news today because it's literally happening as we speak. They're debating in Parliament. So they're not really allowed to debate anything officially or make anything happen because of the pause on Parliament that has happened. But they are debating, I think, a new law that would make leaving the EU without a deal illegal and pass a bill. And then Boris Johnson is opposing that and saying, well, if you want to do that, then I'm gonna make a general election happen and we can just vote on who ends up going to actually discuss the deal. Because he's basically saying, I'm going to get a deal or we're going to leave without a deal. So he's very adamant on that. So it's still all up in the air. It's a bit nuts. But I think if a general election happens, Boris will win anyway because the people just want Brexit to happen. It's just been too long. So that's what I think is going to happen.
Okay. Well, and I got to hand it to you, dude. I'm very, very impressed with you. I was just sort of, in half of my stupor there in the lounge just watching you guys all interact and It's just, you know, I think Colleen even said it. I mean, this is the real value of TRI, is this community and how we all sort of work together to help each other out. And I was
Mm,
really impressed with the way that you were just freely giving out information, how you approach things,
mm.
and just helping. You know, it's just so. Thank you very much. Great stuff,
It's
dude.
my pleasure, as always. It's my
Yeah,
pleasure. Learn from the best.
excellent. So thank you very much for that. I guess let's keep moving this train forward. Um, I suppose on the broader market, that risk on, risk off, you can see the bonds are just kind of waffling right here. Don't really see anything dramatic happening. The data points, didn't see anything really startling coming out on econs today. Um, and so I think, the sort of this is really just really a commentary on does the world feel like it's escalating towards some sort of crisis there in China, or are calmer heads prevailing. I am impressed. I got to say that gold's holding on to its gains here. It's not crapping out, and I think we sort of talked about this recently that the gold market's got a head of steam behind it. I was saying in yesterday's daily brief recap that I'm going to be watching the gold stocks really closely here. With the U.S. dollar coming off, actually, that does open up the window for gold to move higher. But we sort of talked a little bit about the gold stocks potentially empire topping, and then they put in an inside bar reversal. And really, I think what's happening here is we just have this nice little triangle forming now. So we're all sitting here waiting with bated breath as this consolidation plays itself out. Do we M out and lose these lows? And my hunch is if that's the case, then we probably have to go through, at least a period of a week or two of cleanup. Or can we just punch up through the highs and head off to blue skies? I do like the idea that this palladium, and gee whiz, this palladium sure looks strong here. It's kind of a cute little leading indicator, and this is sort of what I was pointing out in the recap. I don't know whether I mentioned this in the daily brief yesterday or not, but I love this. North American palladium is like one of the only proxies outside of Russia to play palladium. And they've actually entered into the gap here. The only problem that I have with this trade just at present is we are coming up to 50% levels. So you can see that's sitting at 1849. Basically, you can see the big gap sitting there that wants to be filled. So I think we're going to rally up into here. But once we hit these 50% levels and we start getting into all this traffic up in here, I think I got to start tempering my enthusiasm. I might even just let these shares go at that point. That was a pretty good trade. I was pretty pleased with myself for that. But you can see this palladium, show me a new high, I'll show you a buy. We're getting awfully close to this thing breaking out again. And actually, I was pretty darn impressed with all of these precious metals. The industrial metals, not so much. But these precious metals and semi-precious things like silver, holy crap! Talk about a bull market. And it's interesting how platinum has finally decided to join the bull camp here. There's the crazy silver, and just keep forging to new highs. There's no way in hell I can be a buyer of this way up here. We did notice, and I was kind of looking at options, thinking about buying puts, but I did notice there's a huge open interest in I think it was the 16 and a halves on the puts heading into the end of the year. So I get the impression that they do not expect the market to come down, and TRI, SOFs, and all that, the numbers just didn't line up just yet. So I got to cool my jets and just wait. And if anything, the fact that TRI, SOFs don't line up means that this thing's probably moving higher. There's that palladium that I talked about just a moment. Really interesting consolidation. I don't even know if this might be a bot. It doesn't look like it. This is going to be sloppy at best, but I don't think so. Yeah, we only got one low here to work with. And we're nowhere near 33. So it's not really like there's an AB equals CD that we can play here per se. I do, I like that PAL play. But it almost feels like we're heading into some sort of blow off top here, and then the market will sort of calm down through the parking garage. But wow, I mean, these precious metals are just looking ridiculously strong here. And platinum. Maybe we should start looking at platinum names again. I mean, look at those beautiful weekly W's, eh? Pretty solid looking stuff. I guess the problem that I have here is, there is the top in platinum, $2,300 or so back in 2008, Chinese Olympics, all that. So, I do like the idea of things like 50% retracements. I think that's completely realistic. Just roughly, crazy trading view. Up there, right? So could we see a rally back to $1,500 on platinum? Sure. I mean, that's a good $600 away easily here. I suppose if you are a bull, maybe wait for some sort of pullbacks into reload zones, that kind of stuff. Test double bottom breakouts. I don't know whether it's a good idea to chase that right there. But we might want to go and look through like venture cap land and stuff, especially all the Canadians. We do have a bunch of Canadian stocks that are in the platinum business. So I haven't really looked at those names in a while, but we might want to take a look at them again. Yeah, that looks like a pretty important trend line, something along there. So we're coming up into that resistance point, and our rule is we gotta wait for the breakout, then show us a W, and away we can go. So I think probably gonna run into some stiff resistance against these old highs here, and that would make sense too, right? If we just look at recent ranges, I think you can make a pretty good argument that's probably what the range the market's working with right now. So something like there to there, and yeah, we're coming up into all these old highs and those trend line resistance. I don't think it really makes sense. You could easily see another $150 or so, but maybe let this thing calm down. Cheeky little gap right down there at 850 and stuff. So we'll see how that goes. I mean, maybe this thing just keeps rocking. Who knows? But it's just an interesting commentary that yeah. I mean, gee whiz, these precious metals sure look strong. But on the flip side of it, of course, we look at all the industrial metals, things like copper, just broke to new lows 2 weeks ago. We're gapping higher here this morning, but still not a heck of a lot to get too excited about. And I suppose you could argue not really a pretty setup at all. This is kind of like hunting a bot long on palladium right now, because that was a new high. There really wasn't three lows to work with here. But 66% of the move has been achieved. So any kind of sort of structural levels, they're probably going to tell you to hop off. But things like aluminum still looking pretty weak, of course, with all tariff talk. Zinc, I did hear, and it'd be interesting if anybody on the site can pull it up. I heard that Indonesia is banning all of their nickel exports, which I thought was really interesting. So if anybody, Matt, if you're watching this later on in Canada, we should maybe take a look at nickel names here in Canada. I suppose the Americans, Europeans, if you got any nickel names. And actually, one place that has a lot of nickel is Australia. So I wonder, the Australians about a week or two ago suggested that we keep an eye on, I don't know where the hell it is. I don't have it on here. But there was a nickel stock that, I don't know whether they're in the nickel business. I think it was called like Hard Metals or something like that. Do you remember that? We talked about it yesterday, Kevin, in the meeting. But I wonder, maybe we should take a look at Australian nickel names, things that are associated with nickel down in Australia. So there's that. suppose just rounding out stock conversations, how'd you get on the Sonos trade? Hopefully you're just sitting riding a free position right now. I actually think we could rally up into this AB equals CD, so keep an eye on $17 and a half. It's not a terrible price. We did make a new high here. This is an AB equals CD objective. I do notice a bit of divergence. Willie is technically stupid. If anything, I'm just looking for that final sort of blow off top here. They announced a big share buyback program, which, people were like, okay, there's news coming out. And then the news came out, well, we're buying back $50 million worth of stock. And people are like, what, that was the news? So we're just sort of sitting here floundering right at this AB equals CD. But I'm going to keep, I've got a January call, so lots of time. And I'm going to keep my fingers crossed for a nice little pop up top there to really hit a home run on this trade. We'll see how that goes. Anybody who's in this little computer task group stock, I think the path of least resistance still appears to be uppy. You can see the very wide double bottom that came in. You can see where value high is up here. And remember, there was there's a suitor that wanted to buy out this company for $5.50 to $6 a share. So interesting how that's up in that window. I noticed that the calls that we bought way back when, they're just slightly in the, they are, because I think they're $5 calls. They are just slightly in the money. They're not at levels that I can sell, bang out doubles, all that kind of stuff just yet. So fingers crossed there. Nothing really to get too excited about just yet on the sell side, but I'm sure if that thing pops, we'll get a nice treat there. Let's see. Just full disclosure purposes, I'll just mention that I did buy a little pharmaceutical stock, and maybe a little bit of a mistake on my part, to be honest with you. I think what was it, DDML? I think it was. I can't remember the name, symbol name, and I think I took it off the watch list because I blew it out because it was just a piece of poo. Where the hell did I put it? I think I closed that. Oh no, there it is. DFFN. So if anything, I think this is a really, really good lesson for everybody on the site. That maybe you got to be just a little bit more crisp with your W calls. Talking to myself, I did buy this W, but if we change this to a line chart, a little bit suspicious. We actually closed at a new low there, so tisk, Brian. But, live by the sword, die by the sword. I did what I said I was going to do, followed my plan, and they broke the lows yesterday, and so I just walked away. Took my lumps. That's the way it goes. Next buzz in 10 minutes, all that kind of talk. So just an FYI, full disclosure for the site. Yeah, I took a loss there. Couple names that sort of, we had our TRI SOF meeting yesterday. Like an idiot, Brian hit the wrong button and I broadcasted it live on YouTube. Thanks, Frog, for letting me know halfway through yesterday. Oh, by the way, Brian, you realize this is on YouTube live? It's like, oh, man. Anyway, it is what it is. Couple names that jumped out from the meeting yesterday, and hats off to Casey. I think Casey's turning into a really good little stock picker. So nice work, Casey. He identified and I've been wanting to buy this stock forever. He identified this 3D Systems. They're in the what do you call it? Laser printing fabrication business. There's a name for that business. I can't remember it just off the top of my head. But 3D printing, all that kind of stuff. 3D printing, that's what they call it? Okay, fine. And sure enough, hopefully everybody can see here, down, up, down. They came down, tested the lows in earnest, turned it back up. They did it with some gaps, so that's always a little bit suspicious. And the volume really isn't impressive here. But what I really did like about this is when you change to a line chart, hopefully everybody can see the W's. It's not a cheap stock, $7 a share, but what's really interesting is you zoom out and hopefully everybody can see, holy crap, this thing is just falling out of bed. So, this is just back just about a year ago. It was a $20 stock. So, could we see, things like 50% retracements rally back up into this resistance level in $14? I don't think it's unrealistic. And then when you zoom out even further, watch this. I mean, this gets crazy. Look how high this stock used to be. Holy for holis. Yeah, almost got up to $100 a share. I don't know whether we can do that just yet. My hunch is probably, if we just draw simple trend lines off the top, that's probably stiff resistance up in there. But can we get a double where you can get yourself some free stock? I actually think it's not a terrible idea. And like I said, I was, I'm very impressed with this TRI-SOF group. I mean, they're finding some really cool stocks, and they're basically doing everything that we teach in the program, and I can see the results. What's that? I mean, just as sort of an aside, I can't remember the name of it, but I think I can't remember the symbol, but I think it's called Park City. This was Kevin's group, PCYG. And I mean, look at this, TRI stock pickers. I mean, everybody should see the W here. In fact, this is a W within a W. And look how this thing's just churned its way higher here. And, this is coming out of, the TRI-SOF group. These guys are turning into some really, really good stock pickers. So the point that I would just make is Casey was right on the ball yesterday. And he identified this W. If you want to take the W, I mean, the stock's just sitting there. I suppose you could even just and it is a valid W, but I suppose we could make the argument if we had a close above this level, that would actually be a nice clothesline W, that high right there, which basically happened yesterday, no. I guess that's one day there. So today would be that day. I mean, if you want to just throw your stink bid in here on this clothesline level, $7, what a coincidence. $7 again there. So obviously that's a pretty important level. 721 now, maybe wait for a pullback. Through the meeting yesterday, what I sort of suggested, I'm a big fan of Leanne and LJs and all that kind of talk. I like the idea of letting this trend line be broken, which I think is the case now. I think because of the gap here, I wouldn't be surprised if this thing jumped right up into these levels. All these horizontal support and resistance levels. This is like level 2 stuff. The gap here, right? Fill in the gap. My hunch is this thing's probably going to just jump right up into here. And then on the other side of this trend line break, I'd like to, and it was sort of what I was posting in the lounge, is I'd love to see something like that happen. And then I'll just go and buy that breakout, or maybe even throw a stink bid in at the gaps. I don't know. So that's sort of what I'm looking for here going forward. But very encouraging and nice pick, Casey. You are becoming, you're getting better and better at your craft every day. So I like how you're thinking. Also, too, on the short term, this is a really good example. We used to have a site member, Joby, and he loved this setup. And there's a guy who won like the World Series of Championship of Trading, something like 3 or 4 years in a row. I mean, just every single time he entered the contest, he won. Just trading this 2-bar pattern. We affectionately call it a Joby gap, but it's a doji bar. The market gaps higher. If it closes today up top here, then a trade through that high tomorrow is a really big buy signal. And think of, gap and go for anybody who's done the level 2 program. And again, that you can almost see how that would actually project up into here. So again, nice pick there, Casey. Very impressive. We've been talking about another stock at length here over the past maybe a couple weeks or so. And actually, just FYI, anybody who's interested in junior piece of crap mining stocks, these guys, somebody mentioned this on the site. It's got about 80 million shares out, so I'm not going to call it light. But hopefully everybody can see the very well-defined double bottoms here on this East Asia Minerals. Trades on Venture Exchange, so you got to have access to that. I don't know whether it trades on the bulletin board down in the state. It might. But they have plans, and they're raising a bunch of money to try and put a project into production in Indonesia. And does anybody remember why is Indonesia and gold kind of a funny story? Does anybody remember what's the connection with Indonesia and gold? Any Canadians? They should probably know this story. Anyone? Bueller? Nobody? I stumped you all? Let's see if that YouTube page is up and running. Anybody over there on YouTube? Riot has that Joby Gap as well. Yeah, I'll get to Riot in a minute, Nathaniel. Yeah. Briex! Very good, Andrew. So somebody got it. Briex started on the Calgary Stock Exchange. It broke out at 20 cents a share, and it went zipping up to over $200 a share. So, you can get 100 X's in these mining stocks. And it's interesting because it was the Busang Peninsula in Indonesia, and it sort of started an absolute firestorm in the Canadian venture market. Well, here's another Canadian gold stock trying to find gold in Indonesia. And everybody should look at this and see the W's and stuff. Do your own due diligence. They did a whole bunch of shares for debt deals. Of course, Brian loves shares for debt deals. Between about 6 and 7, 8 cents. I think there was one deal done at like 5.5. So, debt's usually what kills these little venture companies. So the fact that they're paying off their debts with the issuance of shares, that's usually a good sign. And there's this cheeky gap all the way up here at 40-50 cents. So there's a name for you to consider. And then, as I had sort of mentioned there a moment ago, somebody mentioned it on YouTube, Nathaniel, this Riot looks very interesting. I've been squawking about this for a few days now. And of course, just like that East Asia company, do you guys see the similarities here? Do you see how professionals make money in the market? Anybody who's sort of doing like the free trials and stuff like this, you got to understand that this is a kind of chart that a pro is going to be interested in. And they're not going to get sucked into buying this kind of market state. They're going to be waiting for W's to start forming and all that kind of conversation. I don't know whether we can make the argument she's turned on the weekly basis just yet, but if we drill down to the daily chart, gee whiz, as Nathaniel just pointed out, here we go with Mr. World Series of Championship of Trading again. Hopefully everybody sees we dojied yesterday, and gee whiz, we're gapping higher today. Full disclosure, actually, one of the reasons why we started the video a little late today was literally this thing broke out. We'll say trying to buy the W. This thing broke out, I guess, about... Holy crap, it's already 10 to 10? Jesus, where the hell did the time go? Broke out earlier, right when we were starting the daily brief, just to get that damn order in. And I don't know. I don't think I got a fill, so I think they might have left behind. Yep, still shows open. Boo! Oh, now the stupid thing timed out. All right, well, I gotta go back and log back in and all that stuff. I hope I don't get left behind, but nonetheless, there is, what the heck is going on here? Yeah, that's the brokerage house. I want to be in the bank. Alright, I don't think I got a fill, so let's wait for the bank to let me in. Little bank, let me in. Come on, you. Open orders, order status. Boom, boom, and it is filled. Oh, right on. Cool. All right, cool. So I got filled, and I could go buy my Lambo now. So we don't have to say trying to buy. I bought the W. Yeah, that's encouraging. Yay. All right, so we'll see what happens here. Just like the other ones, you know. You got filled at 205. Way to go, dude. I got filled at 204. Woohoo! So, you know, same old, same old. I'll risk down to the bottom end of the range. Take about 20 cents worth of risk. That's about 10-15%. That's pretty acceptable. And let's see where this son of a gun's going to take us. You might argue that we might be a bit early here. Well, actually, that's not bad. So we got a nice W on the other side of this trend line. If we Joby gap here, hopefully we can get a nice little pop here. And maybe if we're lucky, we can get this kind of rally here and let them have some up top here. But we'll see how it goes. So there you go. There's a new trade idea for the day. We should probably wind this video up. In fact, it's kind of weird. I started today's conversation not knowing what I was going to talk about, and here we are. I've been blabbing for an hour, and I don't even know what the heck I've said. If we take a look at the corn, as I had sort of pointed out yesterday, and a lot of people in the lounge saw this. I was very, pleased and proud to see that this really wasn't a shock to a lot of people on the site. I was very proud of also people who took their long shots off the lows and got some nice trades off here. You can see we're coming up into the 50% level of this range. I think probably this high right here, that was sort of my original sort of justification to be thinking short through here. That looks like that was a bit of a battle level off of that high, but my hunch is, notice this high, this is on Coinbase. This high was 10,790 and 50% level is 10,821. So I could actually see Bitcoin move up a little bit further here, believe it or not. For whatever it's worth, I do watch the algos very closely. I'm still sort of vetting this out. It's just really a question of, all right, I think I've got a pretty good working, no system you're ever going to run is ever going to be 100% correct. Here's a really good example where the algo produced a losing trade. I mean, it just happens. It's interesting how the stop out on this trade here, the algo was going bullish, but you notice the algo dipped out of bull and then popped up and stopped out the short trade, and then back to uber bull. So okay, do we have any structure? How the heck am I going to get structure? And you notice, this is a 4-hour chart, so in essence this is like 12 hours of consolidation. I think I could use that as a range, just basically buy the breakout, risk against the lows. And sure enough, this algo signal worked, right? And then just try and hunt for, initially just try and hunt for that 2-to-1 risk reward. And I'm still trying to figure out how the hell I make sure that every single trade is the exact equal dollar bet in crypto land. I'm still battling with this problem of position sizing. You can see that the relative risk size on this trade was really small. So the trade size itself, to keep the trade sizes the same, the position sizing actually would be a little bit larger. Still haven't figured that out. Asked TRI team to help me. Nobody seems to have an answer for this. So until I can figure out this on my own, I can't really implement this trading plan. So that's sort of a battle that I'm working around. But I would just simply say 2-to-1s were hit. Half of the position should be blown out. Move stop to trailing on the remaining. We quickly jumped up, pulled back, created a sort of market structure level to move stops up against. Then we rallied up to new highs, pulled back, and then we went through those lows about 4 or 8 hours ago. So as a result, I get the impression I'd be more than happy, taking a nice 6-to-1 risk reward on that, and just calling it a day. Um, Really interesting commentary. We talked about this at length about sort of Hoag's 80% play. Um, just spot on. Way to go, Hoag. You won again. And that was that high that I made reference to before, and you notice that actually here was the last sort of big M in the market. So really the question here is, do we need to sort of like W here to sort of replicate this to be able to launch higher? I don't know. I'm kind of feeling, like risk off is off and risk on is back on. Where does Bitcoin fall in this risk on, risk off world? I'm still on the fence about that. Now all of Kevin's buddies in China, all their miners have gone offline, so I suppose that's going to affect the Bitcoin equation. I don't know. I'm just talking out my butt right now. But what I will say is I was watching this level very closely. I'm more than happy to throw the bot trade right back on because technically, that high was the original bot stop level. This high now, like I said just a moment ago, that was the sort of stop run. I think wicks and tails like to be eaten, all that kind of talk. And if we go and M out here, which we have off of sort of like hourly charts, and then I don't know whether you guys can see this, but this is what I'm sort of seeing. One original high, two highs. We have a nice counter trend rally back into reload zones, back against these trend line resistance. If we can get like a third high here, then I think we can actually start thinking bought again. All right, we got the old one high, two highs, maybe three highs, and also hopefully everybody can see this might actually be painting a bit of a head and shoulders here, right? Something like there, to there, to there, to there, to there. And of course, if we lose that and M out, I'll have three lower highs and actually some market structure to work with. And there's my original bought short level. Keep in mind that those levels are still working, right? Nothing's changed there. So I'm going to be watching over the next sort of 8 to 12 hours kind of idea. How do we act through this reload zone here? And those that are a little bit more sharp, lower time frame, I would keep an eye on how price acts in here, and you might actually get a nice little shorting opportunity against these original highs. If we look at the internals, looks like we got a little bit of a W coming in here on MACD, and it's a bit of a divergence, which would sort of explain the uppie right now. Willie itself never really went stupid. No real W's here on OBV or short-term momentum studies just yet. Let's see what RSI looks like. Yeah, it's just a V bottom so far. So it looks to me like this RSI div is still playing out. Probably maybe if Julian comes on the site on Thursday, give us a baby powder report. We're probably fudge, can't do that. I gotta go like that, and that line comes back in. I don't know whether you can see that. It's awfully messy. Let's just minimize this so we don't see this. All right, so probably the bull really comes alive in earnest when we start seeing these kind of trend lines broken. So still a bit early there, I think. Right now we're just battling out that 50 line. Am I a bull? Am I a bear? I don't know what I am. So that's sort of what I'm seeing out of the corn right now. I guess I also did, to a certain degree, also saw things like Ethereum kind of back off from its torrid pace here. I suppose you could argue we did start getting sort of ME type messages up top here, so I don't think that should surprise anybody. And my hunch is there was the rally peak, that was the low. It looks to me like they may set up another test of reload zones. We'll move Mountain Man up to here. And you can see that's going to be nothing more than just a tag of the POC. We've got this MUOC here. So that's sort of acting as a magnet to suck price in. My hunch is the profile probably wants to fill this in, right? And then if we can get to the point where the profile is a square, then I think we're ready to rock and roll. So, my hunch probably that's like 38.2, eh? And, kind of like Bitcoin, you can see the potential head and shoulders here. Kind of like Bitcoin too, thinking about counter trend rallies back into reload short zones. If we look at 38.2s here, my hunch is that's probably, yep, there she is, 38.2. Why did the market stop there? I think Mr. Burchett said something. And if this does, fractal out here, then and we head and shoulders here, then I think we got a pretty good shot. We're going to head back down and test these lows in earnest. So congratulations to all the people, through that holiday long weekend who took long shots on things like Ethereum. Interesting how we rallied right back up to this original market structure fail level. That was like literally the top. And then we M'd out and started to work our way back down here. So, so just like the Bitcoin, I think probably let's leave the conversation off today with does this head and shoulders? Number one, do we see a nice little counter trend rally back up into reload zones? If we go the other direction, yep. Actually, I'm getting pretty good at eyeballing that stuff, eh? So, do we get a counter trend rally back up into reload zones to form the head and shoulders, and then watch how price acts through this window right here? So we'll keep those two levels, that on Ethereum, and then this one on the corn, right here on our screens, and let's see how price acts over the next sort of 12 to 48 hours kind of idea. 12, 24 hours kind of idea. How do we act when we get up through that? And I think that probably is going to set up our next trade. So. Okay, we talked a lot of stock, talked some currencies, talked a little politics, talked a little bit Chinese mafia. That one's for Tim. Talked a little crypto stock, a little 3D printing stock. So I think we're giving you a pretty round presentation today. What do you think, Kevin? You think these people got any value out of the show today?
Yes, sir. Yes, okay. Sir. Everybody's getting filled on Riot now.
Yeah, and then the thing will crap out and come right back down to the bottom. Well, it's hanging in there, so that's good. It's live by the sword, die by the sword. You never know what the hell's going to happen. But if you've been around TRI long enough, then you know that this has got probably a better part of a 60, 65, maybe even as high as 70% chance of actually producing a winning trade for us. But just like I showed you with that DFFN, sometimes these W's, especially ones that are like what we call dirty bottoms, and I thought this was a really good example where you can see that this was a dirty bottom and the rally fizzled out. That's a pretty good looking bottom. So could we have been a little bit cuter here and got in at $1.97 on the breakout? $1.97, 204. That's close enough. I'm not going to sweat it too much. Okay, I think we'll leave it at that for today. Have yourselves a great day, everybody. Thanks for your participation. Thank you, Joshua, for both your contributions in the lounge on the show here, trying to explain what the heck's going on with Boris. Thank you, Casey, for bringing the ideas, and everybody who's participating in the TRI SOF group. And let's just keep on, 1 + 1 = 3. Let's all keep helping each other. A good trade is a good trade is a good trade. And if I like your idea, I'll be more than happy to buy it myself. So have yourselves a great day, everybody. All the best. And the only thing left for good old Brian to say at this point is a big bye for now.